Hi, and welcome back to Let's Get Lit. In today's video, we're going to go over the why and the book review for F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. So, why is this book so influential? What does this book mean? Why do high schools still have their students read this book to this day? And what does all the imagery mean that's mentioned throughout this book? That's everything we'll be discussing in this video. There is a disclaimer, I am not a high school English teacher. These are my own thoughts, opinions, and views of the novel. So please take what I say with a grain of salt. These are just a few things that I observed. Alright, so let's start off with why I think this book is still taught to this day. Well, the themes and morality of this book still ring true in today's society. The three levels of society are clearly notated. The rich, aka Tom and Daisy, the middle class, Nick Carraway, and the lower class, Jay Gatsby. We see throughout the book how these three different societies look and view of life in and of itself. Tom and Daisy have a carefree attitude and a carefree view of society. Tom goes out and has affairs, spends money, and views life as a sort of game that's to be played. They also don't have any notion that their choices affect anybody else. Nick has a view of the world from the working class. His family was well off, but not rich, which afforded him the luxury of going to college and creating a life for himself. Though Nick has never had a bunch of extra money to spend, he can live comfortably. He's able to afford the rent at West Egg. So this affects his view as a working class man. And we also learn throughout the book that Gatsby comes from a very poor family with very low beginnings. We learned how Gatsby, through his life, is determined to make a better life for himself. Through questionable actions and choices, he rises to the rank of society, eager to change his place in history. And we see how this affects his view of life. He views life as a game as well, but he believes he must always be 1 or 2 steps ahead of everybody else, and sometimes it doesn't work out for him. Okay, but why is it important? Well, I believe that today, though the middle class is being phased out, there are essentially the three same views of society. And every reader who reads this book will view life through one of those three lenses. I believe that most people view life through Nick's eyes, the working class eyes. They have a sense of hard work and view the world as practical. Okay, so why is it influential? Well, several reasons, I think. One reason I believe it is because it dissembles the notion of the American dream. For those who may not know, the American dream is something that the United States government coined up in the late 19th century-ish, that any man, no matter his rank or position in society, would be able to rise up from the ashes and form the life that he wants. We see Fitzgerald tackling this issue head-on with Gatsby himself. Gatsby comes from nothing and tries to make and keep his way through society, and to become one of the elites. However, at the end of the story, we learn that Gatsby has paid the ultimate price for this with his life. Fitzgerald also mentions in this story how those who chase the American dream are never usually satisfied with the results. Today, I feel like this book and the themes echoes 100-fold in today's society. Today, we are seeing a huge gap between the wealthy, elite, the common everyday man. Those who are rich seem to be getting richer, and those who are poor seem to be getting poorer. This is also a main reason why we see The Great Gatsby being banned in certain schools across America. It tackles the topic of wealth inequality. The end of the book also seems to state that no matter how hard someone tries to beat their way into the future of society, society will always push them back into the past. Another reason I think this novel is very important is because it takes a look at society in the 1920s. There are many different topics that this book covers. Race, politics, sex, anti-Semitism, all of it is mentioned in this novel in one way or another. Throughout the book, we see Tom say many things about the different races and their place in society. There is no hiding it. Tom is racist. His sole driving factor behind his racism is that he's worried that the colored man will soon rise up in society and take over the white society. As for sex, many people have speculated about the role of women and men in this story. When first published, people thought of Daisy as a stereotypical flapper girl who drank, smoked, and had premarital sex. As times and views shift throughout history, scholars now believe that Daisy was way more than that. She was more of a victim of chance and of society in that time. Women didn't have the same rights they have today, so she was playing her part. In this book, we also see anti-Semitic remarks with several characters. Several times throughout the book, Tom says a few anti-Semitic remarks. Nick also mentions when meeting Mr. Wolfsheim for the first time, he describes his character and his physical features and remarks them as very Jewish, quote-unquote, with the stereotypical nose and other features that would be racist profiling. Also at the end of the book, when he's going to Mr. Wolfsheim's office to invite him to the funeral, he notes that the assistant also looks very, quote-unquote, Jewish. So we do see several anti-Semitic remarks. Now, are all of these things okay? No, of course not. But I believe that the more students who read this book in the context of when it was written shows better the progress we've made today in society as a whole since then. Now, I don't believe that we've changed all that much, but at least some of our views have gotten better. I believe also that we shouldn't hide the past but learn from it. And this book does a very great job of showing society in that time period. Why do high schools still have us read it today? Again, the book is very well written, at least from my standpoint. I really enjoyed it. Fitzgerald tells the story in such a beautiful and metaphorical way that it makes it more palatable for his ideas to come across to the reader. Fitzgerald could have easily been very blunt and had told his story in many different ways, but the way he writes this book, to quote Mary Poppins, is like a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. While reading the book, the reader might become entranced with the way that Fitzgerald speaks, and he does it so eloquently that he discusses his surroundings and people. It's just really nice to read. However, there are moments throughout the book that are peppered with these beautiful comments about society that, when coupled with the metaphors or his language style, really resonates with the readers. It's like a dog owner who puts the medicine inside a piece of cheese or inside of a piece of peanut butter or a spoonful of peanut butter. From the outside, it tastes really good, but on the inside, there's the medicine that one needs. The book is also short in its length, so it's really easy to read for most students. All right, so what is with all this imagery? What does all of it mean? Well, throughout the story, we see Fitzgerald describing many ideas and visions through his beautiful words, one of the biggest being the eyes of God, especially in the Alley of Vash. The way Fitzgerald describes his optometrist ad as a pair of yellow spectacles with just the eyes behind it really means a lot. In the story, this represents the eyes of God, the omnipotent force who watches over everything, everyone, and all of our decisions. He describes it with such detail the reader can almost see it in their mind. The next bit of imagery, Fitzgerald describes the white curtains inside of Daisy's room, how they're beautiful and elegant and just flowing and captures the wind with every move. Now again, this is my opinion, but I believe this is Fitzgerald trying to represent Daisy and her view of life. As we see throughout the book, Daisy just floats from one event to the next throughout the story. She has background, she has character, but on the outside, she lets herself be flown through the wind, kind of just going with the flow. The next great moment of imagery is the green light that is outside of Tom and Daisy's dock. This is probably the most recognizable imagery from this book. Fitzgerald notes that this light is a beacon that draws people to it. On the outside, yes, because a beacon of light is a permanent fixture that's primarily used to signal boats, to make sure they don't hit anything. However, Fitzgerald notes, on a deeper level, this light was a beacon for Gatsby and all of his hopes. He had come so close to achieving his dream. He was just across the water from Daisy, his one true love, and that light was like a siren calling to him and reminding him of how close he is. Fitzgerald also uses this beacon as a metaphor for everybody and their future, and how the future always calls to us, and how we're consistently reaching forward for our own future. We're reaching after our own green light. There are other moments in this novel that have beautiful imagery that Fitzgerald conjures up. Again, he does have a way with words, and he is very well eloquently spoken. Now all that's out of the way, let's do the review. Do I think that The Great Gatsby is a really great book? Yes, I really do believe this book is wonderful. I believe it tackles really complicated issues that society dealt with in the 1920s, but that society is kind of also dealing with now. I think it's a wonderful poetic book to read. I love the way Fitzgerald can turn the simplest of descriptions into a beautiful symphony of words. I will say, for readers who may have a hard time understanding or comprehending what's going on, they may be a little confused. One downside to the novel, and one of the many reasons I believe a lot of students have trouble with the novel, is the fact that Nick in some regards is an unreliable narrator. What I mean by that, Fitzgerald lets the reader know that Nick will be the main character throughout the story, and main narrator. However, a lot of the actions and incidences that happen are not told in chronological order. Therefore, it is up to the reader to have a visual timeline in their head and put the information where it goes. One example of this is when Gatsby dies. Fitzgerald tells of how Nick and Gatsby spent the morning together. Nick went to work, Nick heads back home and finds Gatsby dead. But we'll then jump in the middle of that chapter to tell us about the night before with Mr. Wilson and Nicholas and how those events led to Gatsby being shot. Another big issue that readers may have is that in some instances, Nick has information about characters and the actions they do and leads them to believe that they're a fact without proof, but then Fitzgerald will confirm all this information at a later point in the story. Example, in chapter 3 of the story, we learn about Gatsby's past, or what the reader assumes to be Gatsby's past, and the reader must take that information on, and it may or may not be true. We don't even learn until chapter 8 that all of it's confirmed to be true. So there are long stretches where we don't know if we can necessarily trust the narrator or not until he's confirmed later on in the book. Throughout the book, we do learn that we can trust Nick, but only after the story is finished. All in all, do I recommend you read this book? 100% I do. I think everybody should read this book. It's really short, it's well written, and I think it's a great summer read, and it points out all the flaws in society. But it never wallows in self-pity. That's a big thing, which I really enjoy. I don't like when books get too wallowed in and of itself. I also think it's great for younger readers to see how society really hasn't changed in over 100 years. We may have new technology and more education, but society as a whole has kind of still stayed intact. That is my review of The Great Gatsby. Hopefully this helps you better understand the story and seeing the context was when it was written. Again, these are my own views. I think you should go out and read it for yourselves and let me know what you thought down below. Stay tuned because in the next video we're going to go over the movie review of The Great Gatsby from 2013. Have a great day, and as always, stay lit.